My journey began with the tension between two important narratives in education, the EYFS and the Reggio Emilia approach. I was trained as an EYFS practitioner in a nursery setting, which gave me the opportunity to know its strengths and limitations. However, I became interested in the Reggio Emilia approach because it provides something that EYFS lacks, which is project-based learning, inquiry, critical thinking, child agency, the environment as a third teacher, and reflective documentation. I decided to start a journey of exploration first that led me to understand why I was doing what I did and how can I move things forward from then on. So the challenges were significant, but also were the possibilities and the opportunities ahead, as I was about to find out in the year-long project that this exploration took place. A key learning moment in this journey took place when I encountered in the literature ideas from Freire about emancipatory theory, and especially the banking model of education, which is rooted in the dominant neoliberal narrative that is prevailing in education. Also, the work from Kay about governmentality and the relationship between policy and school readiness, and how Foucault's ideas on governmentalities shape the discourse of school readiness and the implications of that in education. For instance, the emphasis in measurability, which is what I have been doing time and time again in the EYFS, by collecting observations, producing data with the intention of one of the key government technologies called the GLD, or Good Level of Development, which is an assessment for children to reach before they enter year one. This element of measurability labels children into two categories, whether on track or not on track. The problem with that labeling system is that it creates a gap that extends far beyond the moment the children arrive to year one. And then the government reacts by announcing closing the gap by implementing more measurability, more accountability, and more standardization at the expense of teacher agency and holistic learning. Once I learned the mechanics behind the EYFS, I was even more motivated to implement the principles of the Reggio Emilia philosophy in my setting. So I gained approval from my leader to put that into practice in my setting, and with the help of a consultant, I created a studio, which is a specialized place considered in Reggio Emilia as the environment as a third teacher for children and myself, in small groups of 3 children and myself, to discover the intelligence of materials using loose parts, using clay, and using mark making for children to develop interests that eventually lead into projects and into further inquiry. A key element in this process is the documentation, which is far from being merely descriptive, is reflective, which collects the way how children use the materials, the purpose behind these, and most importantly, the meaning the children seek from those interactions. And because of the nature, the dialogic nature of the relationship between materials and what happens in the studio, inquiry flourishes and criticality has a chance to emerge, which is something that EYFS has very, very little to offer in return, as far as my experience is concerned in my recent setting. My thinking shifted from a dominant adult-led early years practice into a child-led, inquiry-based learning Reggio Emilia approach, promoted collection and analysis of data in 2 important ways. First, children became interested in 2 specific concepts, home and family. All this as a result of the interactions in the studio. This came up clearly after a process of reflection in action and reflection on action, where the sustained interactions that we've had led them to move from individual me to a we. In this process, Learning became visible as it emerged, as children compare family experiences, question one another's ideas, and recognize that families can be different yet equally valued. Through dialogue, loose part constructions, drawings, and shared stories, they constructed richer understanding of identity and belonging, making their thinking visible as it evolved collectively. The second source of data came from our discussions about the birdhouse that hosted some new life during the spring. The data analysis from the studio prompted me to listen more, therefore enabling children's voices to emerge without being hijacked by my own interventions. It was also here that I understood that inquiry and criticality are two different things. As children move beyond asking questions to evaluating evidence, by justifying their ideas, for instance, how do you know, listening to alternative explanations, and revisiting their theories together, they demonstrated that critical thinking emerged through dialogue and not simply curiosity. The impact of this experience in my professional development is been profound. Such is the case that I have accepted a job offer at an international school abroad, where I will be collaborating with other colleagues in developing the IB curriculum for children ages 5 to 6 in a kindergarten setting. One of the key lessons I learned from this process and during this module is that education is not meant to be performative, it's meant to be transformative. And that's what I have seen in my own practice, but also on the way how I perceive and understand my children. And also has been reflected by many parental comments on their understanding that these experiences also are passing on to them, so they join along in this journey.